Welcome back. Warrior Wednesday with Johnny Tiger on December 5th, 2022. So, just last night, Kitten asked me this question. Why do some people scream and make a lot of noise when they do martial art? And why do some people not do it? Now, I believe that in the very beginning of this Johnny Tiger video, I actually did make a video talking about kiai and war cry and the foundation application of all that. But there's honestly hundreds of videos on this channel. I'm pretty proud that there's this many, but that also means that for newcomers or people who might have forgotten or missed the early episode, it's going to be really hard to find some information. So in that spirit, let's just have a little bit of understanding that we're always going to have some repeat episodes, which, from a strictly entertainment point of view, is not very good. Okay, from an entertainer or blogger or videographer, whatever you want to call it, having repeats is not good. However, from an educational point of view, it's good because, as most of us know, the only way to really get good with your self-defense, with your martial art, is through repeated execution, repeated practice, repeated uh, going through the same material again and again and again and again. As Bruce Lee once said, and I quote, I fear the person who practiced a single kick 1,000 times way more than I fear the person who practiced 1,000 different kicks. So that to tell us that a lot of time it does take repetition and a lot of it in martial art. So that make me feel a little bit better about repeating myself. Ah, you know, especially now I'm in my 40s, I'm getting old. I'm going to start repeating myself a lot. I just know it. So anyway, all that aside, kiai or kiai, I heard different people pronouncing it differently. Basically, come down to one thing: war cry. Why do some people do it? Why do some people not do it? What is it for? What exactly is it good for? Okay, so let's take it apart and break it down and take a look. First, why do some people do it? Why do we do it? What is it for? Uh, Kai has a lot of. I'm just going to call it war cry. Again, I don't like to always call things by the Japanese word because, well, some of you know how I feel about the whole Japanese thing. Uh, they did a lot of horrible things to my people. So while I don't hate Japanese people by default. I'm not that shallow, and I have one of my favorite uncle is Japanese. Some of my friends are Japanese, or some of my friends are Japanese family. So I definitely don't hate Japanese people. Let's just get that straight. But there's a lot of things that I will defer to some my own culture rather than Japanese culture, because honestly, a lot of what is known as Japanese culture, including the samurai sword, the katana, were copied from Chinese culture. Japanese kimono, copied from Chinese culture. Japanese gi, copied from Chinese culture. Karate came from China. Okay, so uh, rather than saying kai, we'll just say war cry. The point of war cry, there's many applications. So we're going to start with the most mundane, the most pedestrian reason why people do it. When we talk about war cry, and if you look around at the people that do it, It's mostly traditional martial arts that have actually very little actual combat involved. They do a lot of choreographs, drills, board breaking, choreographed patterns and combos and forms, and they do a lot of choreographed sparring. In other words, there is a big part of it that is performing art. Okay? So Warcry, at its base level, is used primarily for performing art. Okay? Uh, as we most of us know, especially those of us who are blind, if you're blind and you're listening, you're sitting down listening to a sparring video, and all you hear is that's really boring. Okay, that's really boring. That just doesn't really do anything for you. Uh, I imagine for a lot of sighted audience, uh, if you, if you want to test it out yourself, go rent or go find a kung fu movie off YouTube, watch it one time with the sound muted, and then watch it again. Turn the sound up nice and loud, and you'll know what I mean. So when the people just going like this, is it realistic? Yeah, but it is not theatrical. It doesn't fulfill the the auditory need of the audience. Okay, um, not to mention when you're going like this, no one really know how hard you're hitting. You can be barely hitting the person. You can be hitting super hard. It's really hard to tell. Okay, so the war cry in its base stage was used for stage performance. For thousands of years, martial artists uh, couldn't couldn't just stay in their mountain home uh, and practice. You know, martial artists have to eat too. So a lot of martial artists became street performers to feed themselves, to support themselves. And obviously, when you're performing on the street, when you're sparring with each other, you can't go all out with each other all the time. Otherwise, you'll be hurting your own student, or you'll be hurting your master, or you'll be hurting your sparring partner. So to compensate for that, to make the performance more fun, more enjoyable for the audience, uh, street performers, martial art entertainers make elaborate, loud noises when they're fighting. Hard. Like that. Okay? So when you do that, it already enhances the performance because now it's not just visual. Now there's a auditory uh, aspect to it. Especially when you imagine that thousands of years ago, it's not like they could have loudspeakers in the background, give them some good fight music. Nothing like that. Just there on the street, they set up the stage and they have to do their thing. So there is an art element to it, a big art element to it. It's for theatrical, for dramatic effect. Okay? With that said, when we talk about dramatic theatrical effect, we can look back at again, one of the most famous martial art uh, movie star, Bruce Lee. Right? Bruce Lee, when he's in his movies, he does this and the thing. When when he fights for real, when he's doing his real thing on the street or in the dojo, he does not make those sounds. He did not make those sounds. Okay? Martial artists do not make those noises when we are training. That is purely for the big screen. That was for movie. Bruce Lee did that as a uh, like a very personalized kind of war cry. So he's instantly distinguishable. is instantly noticeable. Even if you didn't know Bruce Lee, as soon as you hear that, you know, oh, it's that Chinese kung fu guy. Okay, so that was for branding. That kind of that cat call, is what it's called. The cat call style war cry. It's purely for branding. That is purely for the stage. So does that mean that war cry is just for show? No. How to do war cry is very much grounded in the foundation of almost every traditional martial art. Before you even know how to throw a proper punch, before you even know how to throw a proper kick, you got to learn how to deliver that war cry. Okay? And there is a lot of psychological component to this. So let's talk about that. First, when you make sound, your uh, automatically it help you to forget about your fear, to forget about what you need to be thinking about. As a lot of us learn down the road, when the only way for you to perform really good in self-defense or martial art is for you to stop thinking. If you have to stop and think one, count before two, and then three, you got bend your elbow, four, you come from the other side, that won't work when you're being pressured, when someone's actually coming at you and punching you in the head. Okay, so war cry will take you out of that mind frame. Your focus on making the sound and leave your body alone so your body can perform. And so that is a psychological aspect. Also, doing war cry or kiai, whatever, take you away from thinking about how much it's going to hurt when the other person hits you. Uh, I demonstrated this before uh, on this medicine ball. I remember this part. This is a very hard medicine ball. If I just stand here and I say I'm going to smack this medicine ball 5 times as hard as I can with my hand and don't make any sound, I'm not going to make any do any war cry. Ow. Okay? Honestly, by the second hit, I already think I should stop. But the second hit, I'm like, oh, ow, this really kind of hurts. Uh, why am I doing this? Okay, I'm thinking about how much it's going to hurt. I'm scared of this stupid medicine ball. But if I actually focus on making the right sound, then I wouldn't be thinking about it. No problem. So those are the two uh, internal psychological benefits of war cry, and there are more. One of the uh, time, a lot of my students, my head student Clement, especially shout out to Clement, uh, has always said, "Sensei, you don't kai enough, you don't make enough sound," and that it is true because my training is a blend of Eastern philosophy and Western boxing, Muay Thai. Actually, Muay Thai is Eastern. Kickboxing, MMA, Western kind of stuff. So we'll talk about a little bit more about that in a little bit. But I do. There are situations when I use the war cry to its full potential. One of the times is whenever I need to spar or fight multiple opponents at the same time. If I'm fighting two, three, four multiple people and they're crowding in and I'm honestly really getting tired, quite often you will see what I do is I deal with one person and let's say the other person coming in behind me, you'll see me suddenly turn, "Ush!" Okay, right in their face. I'm not hitting them. I just turn around suddenly and do a loud war cry. And this is a very magical thing. This is where war cry is really great for that fight psychology moments. When the moment you suddenly whip around and scream or bark in someone's face, that person, especially if they already see you beating up their friend, that person will immediately jump back or shrink away, creating that golden opening you need to get out of the circle, to get away from them. Okay, so that is a very very good way of using a war cry. Another way that I utilize war cry sometimes is when I'm throwing a feint, rather than purely relying on the visual. I will go, what happened? I make a sound, but my fist didn't go out. However, to the person who see my motion, they think the moment I yell, I'm going to punch, so they're going to move. I can set people up. I have set a lot of people up that way just by making that sound alone. Okay? So, those are the psychological benefit of learning how to do a good word cry. On the physiological level, there's also reasons why you want to do it. First, if you are focusing on making sound, as we already demonstrated, since it takes the fear out of your heart, it also dampens the pain you feel, right? Um, if you guys ever do any kind of body conditioning, we do that a lot in Krav Maga. It's take someone's forearm and hit your forearm and ow, that really, really hurts when people do that, right? Forearm bone to forearm bone. Next time you do that, every time you hit, make a sound. Does it still hurt? Yeah, it still hurt, but it hurt a lot less. Why? Because your brain is not focusing on the pain, right? So on that level, it's a nice little painkiller in a fight. On a different level, but along the same branch, doing a war cry will magnify the output of your energy because it's putting thought to action. There's an old quote that says, if you believe it long enough, it will become reality, right? So if you, every time you punch, even if your punch is really weak, if you make loud sound, eventually your brain will interpret that as hard punch. Your punch will be able to get harder, harder. You'll throw harder kicks. Even when you're really tired, if you do a really good war cry, you'll find that it kind of rejuvenates, it kickstart that adrenaline flow in your body and give you that little bit of boost of energy. So, uh, there is one fundamental importance of war cry, which is breath control. You cannot fight if you can't breathe. You cannot fight if you don't have good breath control. Now, a lot of people, especially when you are new at training, no matter if it's martial arts, self-defense, or just doing regular push-ups, a lot of people will forget to pace their breathing, to hold, they'll hold their breath sometimes, or sometimes they'll gasp and let too much out. Right? So to prevent that, if you learn how to make the right sound in a rhythmic, in a the kind of rhythm, in the kind of pace that you need to make your breathing go with, then it will help you not having to think about breathing. Your body will do it because when you make a sound, breath have to go through your throat. Right? I don't know how many of you know this, but it is the air going through your throat that help you make sound, which means if there's no air, you can't make a sound. Okay? That's a interesting little trivia. Sound is not generated by your body. The words you say, the sound you make is generated by air going over your vocal cord. And we'll do a quick little demonstration, right? Uh, let's say if I have to get down and do 10 push-ups and I don't make any sound. Now, for me, that is not tiring just because I'm used to doing push-ups, but it is tedious. It is tedious. It seems like it takes forever because I'm not breathing properly. I'm not making sound, and it just feels like it takes an hour to do those 10 push-ups, right? And I tend to get gassed out a little bit faster if I have to do 50 push-ups. That way, I would either gas out or I would die of boredom. Right? So this is another time when you'll hear me, those are my students, those are my friends that say you don't make any sound when you fight. This is another thing. This is another time when you'll actually hear me utilizing kiai or war cry. It's when I'm doing something like push-up. Get down and do 10 push-ups. So easy, I barely even feel that, right? Because I'm making the effort to channel, to pace my breathing by using that little kiai. So now that we know, we hear about all these benefits. It's artistic, it's dramatic, it's impressive, it got all kinds of psychological benefit and physiological benefit. Let's talk about why do some people not do it. I'll start with myself because obviously I can't speak for other people. Right? Part of the reason is that it is not applicable for Western martial art, such as boxing. Why? Because a lot of time, like I said, these war cries, these loud noises, they're used in martial arts where you're sparring, but you're not really hitting each other all that hard. Okay, so you can take the energy to make all the cool noises, but in the sport like boxing or MMA, when someone is going on your head, you need to keep your jaws clenched. You don't have the time to actually make that noise when someone's going nuts on your face and on your head. You got to cover up and really focus on keeping your chin down. Right? This is another thing. When you're tucking your chin, as you should in boxing, kickboxing, MMA, whatever, when you're tucking your chin, it's really hard to sound really good when you're making a work right. Like, your sound is kind of choked off before it even come out. Sometimes when you try to do that work right the proper way, you go, Ush! See how the head come up? Ush! I'm exaggerating it, but this actually happened. When you want to make that loud sound, your head will come up, and that is when you get knocked out, when your chin come up. Right? So it's not practical when you have to keep your chin tucked, keep everything tight, and someone's pummeling you on the head. Right? It's just not going to work. Also, a lot of time when we are sparring, we got headgear, we got mouth guard, which means Even when we want to make a kiai or war cry, it's going to make us sound like some kind of idiot, right? It's going to sound like or, or, right? You're going to sound all muffled. Not to mention, uh, first, and this is really disgusting, when you have mouth guardian and when you have headgear on and you start trying to make loud noises, aggressive loud noises like that, two things are going to happen. One, you will start to drool. Okay, either you'll start to get runny nose or you start to drool. That happened to me whenever I tried that. Second is eventually someone is going to hit you the moment you open your mouth to shout. And what that's going to do is cause your mouth guard to pew fly out of your mouth. And it's very embarrassing when that happens. You might as well tap out for the round. Okay, someone just knocked your mouth guard clear out of your mouth. You lost. There's just no second way about that. So it is for those reasons primarily that a lot of people will not do kiai or war cry. It's because of the gear, because of the style, the discipline, the kind of force powered contact they have to deal with. Not to mention when you actually spend energy making those loud sounds, right? Um, I mentioned earlier that it will help you get a boost of energy. It will trigger your adrenaline. Yes, it will. But you still have to expand the energy to make those sound in the first place. So it is a little bit of a gamble, especially when you're in a highly cardio intensive kind of situation where you're doing kickboxing or boxing kind of a sparring or fight. Now, for me personally, uh, I mainly don't do it because aforementioned reason. Because a lot of time I either have headgear on, or mouth guard in, or I am sparring where someone's targeting my head all the time. But another reason for me personally is when I utilize war cry, when I utilize kiai, I have a hard time controlling my uh, strength level. When I throw a punch, if I'm not making loud noises, then I'm very calm. It's not triggering all that chemistry thing going on in my head, all the extra adrenaline or stuff like that, aggression. It's not messing with me psychologically. So when I'm not doing that, I can pace myself. I can, depending on who I'm sparring with, I can be very controlled. So if they hit me, I can hit them back, but I'm not going to hurt them very badly. I throw that punch like maybe 20%, okay, maybe 25% hook, right? Maybe 20% to the body. Hard enough to get the point across, but I'm not going to destroy them, put them in the hospital, right? The moment I start, and this may be a personal feeling, other people may not have this problem. The moment I start using Kai and all that go out the window, I start to go really hard. When I start to swing hard, I start to kick hard, I start to move really quickly, and it just a recipe for disaster when I do that. I tend to end up hurting people that by accident. So that's another reason. Uh, so usually, if you watch me fight or spar, and you hear me start to produce that kind of noise, then you know I'm starting to get really serious, and you know that I'm dialing things up to a totally different intensity level. Now we've been talking a lot about the do's and don'ts. Why do some people do? Why do some people don't? I want to end this episode with something that you can actually take away and learn uh, and practice. Because not all war cries are made equal. Okay? Um, but before we get into that, I want to say that for Western martial arts, for boxing and stuff like that, it's not that we don't make sound. We just don't make that kind of sound. And a lot of time when I'm uh, doing boxing and MMA stuff, I still make sound. I just okay? So rather than a loud grunt, a loud shout, we tend to whistle because we can keep our chin down, keep mouth guard in our mouth, and just whistle through our teeth, and still get the same effect, the breath control and all that stuff. Okay, so that is just a different style of breath control. Now I already said that you don't want to go like Bruce Lee. Okay, things like that. That's just silly, silly. Okay, it's cool for Bruce Lee, but anything cool on Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee can probably go on set with nothing but speedos and making those noises and still be pretty cool. Not the rest of us. Yeah? And you do not go hiya, hiya, or hoi. Right? It should not be any kind of long exhalation. It should not be a sound that's longer than zero point 0.5 second or 1 second or any of that nonsense. Those are for movies. Those are for video games. Right? Why? Because when you make a long sound like that, it will mess with your movement. Right? Let's just take haya. That's two syllables. Haya. So when do I throw the punch? On the high or on the ya? There's problem for both. Most people will go high ya, high ya, high ya. Right? So the fist go out on the ya. That's no good because when you're fighting someone who's equally or more skilled than you are, the moment you go high, they're hitting you. They're not going to wait for you to ya. Right? So some people say, okay, no, then we'll punch on the high. Watch what's going to happen. Hiya! Hiya! What's happening? I'm not retracting my fist because my brain is thinking long, long sound. So my body is like, hiya! It's not until the ya is done that I pull my arm back. Again, you fight anyone who is skilled or more skilled than you are doomed when you do that. Okay? So there's just no good way to execute attacks doing that kind of noise. It should be short and it should be a sound that you can make on exhaling, like right? It shouldn't be a sound that you require you to open your mouth wide because this will let all the air out and you'll run out of energy. Like ah, it should never be ah. It should never be uh, uh, like hey. Okay, those throaty noises no good. The sound should come from your torso. Right? It should resonate in your belly, your lung, like a properly trained opera singer. It should come from deep within, not your throat. The sound should not be hey or ha. It should be whoosh, 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 shoo. Okay? Sound you can make with the mouth closed. In other words, sound you can make without having to open your mouth wide and sounding weird. There's of course a lot more, but every discipline has a different kind of war cry, different set of do's and don'ts. But these are the basics. Short sound that you can generate from your chest, from your belly, sounds that don't require you to go opening your mouth. That should keep you guys in pretty good shape if you practice your war cry this way. And don't forget, uh, there's really no right or wrong thing to do. As long as you know why you're doing it and what you do when you do it, it works. If it works, it's the right thing to do. So if you think that you can do Bruce Lee's oh yeah and then still be very effective, then all the more power to you. Right? Uh, I am just here to give you my personal take, my personal from my personal experiences, but ultimately it have to work for you. Thank you for checking out today's Warrior Wednesday. We'll be back again later for some Wisdom Wednesday to look at the more genteel side of things. For now, good night.